Although the realm of horror movies varies, there is always one constant. The antagonist is not going down without a fight, but every once in a while the odds favor the side of evil, making it all the more depressing when the adversary in question emerges triumphant when the good guys were so close to beating them. So with that in mind, I'm Adam, this is What Culture Horror, and here are 10 horror movies where the hero almost won. Number 10. Brightburn. In this dark adaptation of the Superman mythos, Tori and her husband Kyle discover an extraterrestrial ship in the forest which contains a humanoid baby. Desperate for children of their own, the couple decide to adopt the child, naming him Brandon. On his 12th birthday, Brandon begins developing superpowers, compelling his parents to tell him the truth about his origins. After his spacecraft emits telepathic messages to Brandon to take the world, the alien teenager begins lashing out, killing anyone who's ever wronged him, including his adopted father. As Brandon's power and ambition grows, Tori realizes she must put him out of his misery. Discovering that he can be harmed by his own ship, Tori takes a shot of the vessel before coaxing Brandon towards her. After giving him a huge hug, Brandon seemingly lets his guard down. Just as Tori's about to drive the shot into his back though, Brandon realizes he's been duped and knocks it out of her hand. Tori begs for forgiveness, but her pleas fall on deaf ears. Flying his mother high above the clouds, Brandon lets go, letting Tori fall to her death. Number 9. Friday the 13th Remake. No matter how many times Jason Voorhees is butchered, sent to hell, or cast into space, the murderous hockey fan keeps coming back. In most Friday the 13th entries, Jason has the good grace to look pretty dead by the time the credits roll, but that's not the case in the 2009 remake. When Jason kidnaps camper Whitney, her brother Clay heads to Crystal Lake to find her. After locating Whitney in a dilapidated shack, the pair are cornered by the masked maniac. Following a brutal confrontation, Whitney immobilizes Jason by impaling him with his machete, while quipping a one-liner, of course. Just for good measure, they chain his neck to the inside of a wood chipper, slicing the top of his head off. Although this would classify as overkill for the average psychopath, it doesn't keep Jason down for long. Mere seconds after Whitney and Clay dump Jason's body into Crystal Lake, he leaps out at them before the screen cuts to black. If the two siblings had the initiative to scurry out of the shack after Jason died, they could have avoided meeting with a terrible fate. Number 8. Final Destination. When Alex Browning and his peers have a near-death experience, the Grim Reaper takes it very personally. Deducing that death will come after them in the same order they were meant to die, Alex uses this knowledge to protect his friends, with mixed results. Despite the Dark Spirit's best efforts, Alex and classmates Carter and Clea successfully cheat death once more. However, the group underestimate Death's ability to bear a grudge. Rather than leaving them alone, the Reaper circles back and tries again. And when Carter sees a neon sign falling towards Alex in the climax, he shoves him out of the way. Sadly, Carter's good deed backfires spectacularly. Since Carter is next on the hit list, the sign swings back, crushing him to death. Alex and Clea don't fare much better, since Alex is killed between this film and its sequel, a sequel which saw Clea offed. In hindsight, you have to feel bad for Alex. Not only was he smart enough to figure out the design that Death had for them, he took it upon himself to save them all, even when they didn't believe him. Annoyingly, all they did was delay the inevitable. Number 7. Saw 5. Saw Big Bad John Kramer aka Jigsaw is known as a serial killer, even though he's never directly murdered anyone. Not only that, his tests are designed so the unwilling participants will survive if they obey the rules to the letter. Although Kramer's disciple Hoffman doesn't follow his mentor's teachings, he did give Alex Strom a fair shot of surviving the glass coffin trap in Saw 5. Hoffman left a tape inside the box that explains how Strom will be safe if he gets inside it. Since the coffin is filled with broken glass, Strom assumes Hoffman is lying. When Hoffman appears, Strom chucks him into the container and seals the door shut. However, Strom realizes Hoffman was telling the truth when he sees the room's walls closing in on him as the coffin safely lowers beneath the floor. For his mistake, Strom is crushed to death, while Hoffman gets away scot-free. What makes this moment more tragic is the fact Strom survived the water cube box earlier, which appeared to be inescapable. After beating a seemingly impossible trap, Strom failed to survive the easiest trial possible. Number 6. Texas Chainsaw Massacre 2022. In the slasher genre, any killers tend to have an unexplained ability to recover from any wound. As such, viewers are half expecting the villain to pop back up, no matter how many times they've been shot, stabbed, or incinerated. And yet, the final moments in 2022's Texas Chainsaw Massacre still caught viewers off guard. After arriving in the small town of Harlow, a group of young landlords encounter Leatherface just as he's prepping his latest killing spree. After half the townsfolk find themselves on the end of the cannibal's blade, sisters Leela and Melody realize they're the only ones left who can put an end to the bloodshed. Following a ferocious chase, Melody grabs Leatherface's weapon and pulls off a Mortal Kombat-style finishing move, uppercutting his face with the tip. The sisters then hop into a car and drive off, momentarily enjoying their triumph. Sadly, their celebration is interrupted seconds later when Leatherface pulls Melody out of the window. As Leela looks from the sunroof, she watches the villain effortlessly cleave Melody's head off while she's mid-scream. Even though it's tragic, the sisters could have avoided this final encounter with the chainsaw-swinging madman if they drove their car faster than 10 miles per hour. And while you're watching, my fellow horror fans, please do let us know down in the comments of your favorite hero in a horror movie that almost won but didn't quite get there. And you know the usual stuff. If you like the videos, please give us a like and a subscribe. That would be absolutely lovely. Number 5. Event Horizon. In Paul W.S. Anderson's Cosmic Scarefest, a space crew investigate the re-emergence of the long-lost Event Horizon starship, which uses wormholes to travel. Upon investigation, they learn the ship entered a portal to hell, causing it to gain sentience. And even worse, the Event Horizon intends to return there, where the crew will be tortured for all of time. Since the portal drive is in the ship's stern, Captain Miller realizes he and his team can escape if they blow the ship in half while they're in the front. And although the crew reach the front, Miller gets trapped in the back of the ship when the wormhole activates. Just before Miller is sent to hell, he separates the vessel in two, allowing his companions to fly to safety. Or so it seems. When the crew are awoken months later by a rescue squad, they immediately succumb to hellish hallucinations. At first, it looks like they are suffering from post-traumatic stress disorder. As the door closes by itself, it becomes unmistakably clear this portion of the ship is also sentient, indicating the crew's troubles are far from over. Number 4. Alien Covenant. Like Prometheus, Alien Covenant left everyone with far more questions than answers. Entire subplots were brazenly discarded. The key characters were killed off screen without a second thought. Every member of the ensemble acts like idiots. Also, the xenomorph lore was retconned again, so the aliens are now byproducts of an experiment rather than, you know, aliens. While viewers are doing their darndest to process everything, the movie throws in one more curveball during the climax. After the android Walter kills his counterpart David, he returns to his vessel while it's been attacked by xenomorphs. After a bloody battle, Walter and Chief Daniels are the only ones left standing. Preparing to continue their mission, Walter places the Chief in a status pod. Just before she's put into cryosleep, Daniels realizes the android is actually David, who murdered Walter so he can take his place on the ship. David then regurgitates two facehugger embryos, demonstrating that he intends to continue evolving the xenomorphs until they've become the perfect life form. If Daniels noticed something was up a few seconds earlier, she could have disabled David, ending the xenomorph threat there and then. Number 3. Cube. Cube centers around 5 strangers who wake up inside a colossal maze. The group consists of math genius Joan, Dr. Helen, cop Quentin, engineer Worth, and autistic savant Kazan. When Quentin sees the others falling in disarray, he takes control of the situation, trying to find practical solutions to escape. After Quentin repeatedly butts heads with the group, he lashes out at Helen, killing her. When he threatens to slaughter the others, they wisely abandon him. Just as Worth, Joan, and Kazan find the exit, it looks like they're on the home stretch, but Worth suddenly decides to stay, believing he has nothing to live for. Rather than saving her own skin, Joan encourages him to leave, promising he will find a purpose in the real world. During their heated discussion, the pair don't hear Quentin entering the room, allowing him to stab Joan to death and leave Worth mortally wounded. Before succumbing to his injuries, Worth successfully kills Quentin, leaving Kazan as the sole survivor. Sadly, Joan's conscience was her undoing, since she would have made it out alive if she abandoned Worth. Number 2. The Orman. In The Orman, respected diplomat Robert Thorne is going about his day when he discovers his 5-year-old son Damien is actually the Antichrist. Even though Damien is destined to usher in Armageddon, Robert can't bring himself to kill the boy. But when Damien slaughters Robert's friends and allies, he acknowledges the fate of humanity lies with him, ending the child's life. Realizing Damien can only be slain by the Megiddo daggers while on hallowed ground, Robert drives his son to a church and prepares to perform the deed. Little does Robert know that his erratic driving gets the attention of the police, causing several officers to follow him. Just as Robert is about to slay Damien, the boy yells, "Please, Daddy, no." There is so much terror and desperation in Damien's voice, Robert can't help but hesitate. Although Damien's pleas only stall Robert for a few seconds, it gives the police enough time to catch up with them and order Robert to stand down. When Robert refuses, the officers are left with no choice but to shoot him dead. Number 1. Smile. Smile kicks off with therapist Rose speaking with college student Laura, who claims to be haunted by a smiling demon. Dismissing those claims at first, Rose is horrified when Laura starts leering at her before killing herself. As traumatic as this incident is for Rose, it's only the beginning of her problems. When she sees grinning faces everywhere she goes, the good doctor realizes the Smile entity is stalking her. Learning the Smile entity feeds off trauma, Rose realizes the malevolent spirit has attached itself to her since she saw her mother die. Rose also discovers the demon drives its victims to suicide and transfers the curse onto any witnesses. To avoid passing the curse on, Rose decides to stay in her mother's abandoned and isolated house. Refusing to give up, the dark spirit hopes to break Rose by taking a monstrous form of her mother. Luckily, Rose stands her ground, telling the smiling entity it has no power over her before burning it to a crisp. Breathing a sigh of relief, Rose heads to the apartment of her friend Joel. But when Joel makes a grimacing smirk, Rose realizes the nightmare isn't over. While she's vulnerable, the entity possesses Rose's body, destroying her spirit. Somehow, it gets worse. As Joel bursts in to rescue her, the now smiling Rose burns herself alive, killing herself. Since Joel witnessed her demise, the curse passes on to him, allowing the Smile entity to continue its murder spree indefinitely.